In Calgary, Alberta, there is a woman who is taking on a giant responsibility. It's something so important that it affects every single person on the planet. Who is she, and how did she raise $2 million to fight climate change? And why did her story all start with a Happy Meal? In 1995, a young Kat Cadungog migrated to Canada with her parents in the hopes of a better life. Her dad was an engineer in the Philippines, but in Canada, he had to take on a job as a fry cook at McDonald's. The family barely scraped by.
I can't imagine what a breaking point it is for my mother to say, we don't even know if we can afford a Happy Meal at this point. Like, we don't even know where we're going to find the money to pay next month's rent.
Eventually, her dad landed the job he had hoped for at an oil sands refinery. Bills were being paid, but Kat developed a feeling that her family was now surviving by killing the planet.
When the vessel by which my dad was able to achieve prosperity for our family is now the detriment for future generations.
Kat made it her life mission to reverse the problem that her family benefited from. After graduating from university, she started working with youth to tackle the community's climate issues. But it didn't go well. The youth in Kat's community had so many great ideas. But since they were young and particularly rural and indigenous, nobody was willing to help grow the ideas. More importantly, nobody was willing to fund them.
I just see this power among young people, this motivation, and just honestly competency. Yet we choose not to fund this type of work. It seems like a mismatch. Everyone talks about protecting future generations, so we should empower them and get them engaged really early on.
Kat realized she needed to take matters into her own hands by building something new. Her peers shared their big ideas. New technology to make farming more sustainable, recycled clothing to reduce fast fashion. But it wouldn't be enough to just find them money for their endeavors. Kat knew she needed to train the youth so that their newly founded organizations would be long-lasting and successful.
You can't just invite a fish to live in a forest because you haven't set up a lake for it to thrive.
She called it the Youth Harbor, and she started by fundraising. Or at least that's what she tried to do.
There was a lot of resistance of being like, we don't trust youth to manage this money. We don't know if youth can implement this type of project. It's a lot of microaggressions of being like, oh, do you think you'll be able to handle this? How does that make you feel? Having to constantly defend yourself. Tiring. It's belittling. It makes you feel small. It makes you feel as though you gaslight yourself in a way, and you start sometimes believing that what they're saying is true. And you're like, maybe I am too young. But I'm the type of person that I just get more angry. If anything, those moments of having doors closed, phone calls unanswered, texts unread, further solidified to me that this needs to happen.
Kat was asking for millions of dollars in funding, but the reality was only 0.76% of all climate change activism funding went to youth in climate. She didn't give up, though. And for her, this fight was personal. She blames climate change for two pivotal losses in her own life: the destruction of her mother's home in the Philippines during a typhoon in 2021, and the loss of her in-laws' home in northern Alberta due to the Canadian wildfires.
It's all of these scary things that we're compounding, that it's knocking on our doors, and yet people still refuse to see it. People still refuse to act on it.
Kat pleaded to big businesses, giving presentation after presentation, being belittled time and time again, until finally.
I remember getting the call that we were getting the funding. I can cry just think about it. I just knew like so many people's lives were going to change. We had an opportunity to really meaningfully empower youth. And I just laid there on the ground, and I took a deep breath, and I was probably just in tears. Because what it also signaled to me was the hard work that was going to come ahead.
In the face of this endless devastation that people can just sit idly by and literally watch the whole world burn, and we are the ones that have to fix this.
Soon, youth across the country were receiving funding and building out organizations to fight against climate change. One of her groups piloted new tech to make farming more sustainable, and another organized clothing swaps out of recycled materials to reduce fast fashion.
3 different organizations so far We gave them $20,000 and they've been able to scale that money to $200,000 in the span of a year. This other group based in Alberta, they were focusing on bike infrastructure and paths and sustainable urban centers. We provided them with $20,000. They did a lot of advocacy work, engaging with the community. And now this particular city has adjusted their budget to now invest $20 million in additional bike infrastructure.
The Youth Harbor is now in full swing, providing grants and organizational support to young people across the country.
We provide networking support and technical assistance, the administrative work, the bookkeeping work, the grant writing work, how to incorporate as a nonprofit so that it's easier for them to navigate these systems to scale up.
She has now raised over $2 million in funding for youth climate activism. She has opened shared workspaces in Toronto and Vancouver and helped prop up 50 different youth-led eco-groups.
All of that is because you believed in these people. I could never attribute any of their impact to me. I was able to unlock their ability to access support. And I know there's so much work that needs to be done. There's so many more young groups that we need to seek out and actually support.
And to think, all of this was started with a young girl who just wanted a Happy Meal.
2030 is coming up. We have to limit our warming to 1.5 degrees. If not now, when? We need amazing radical action that young people are leading. We need the political will that young people are so great at cultivating. We need, communities built on equity and trust and relationship building. If not now, when?